Good, good. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you, Reverend James, for inviting me again to speak. I wish I was there in person. I really do. But my intention is that the energy of the gathering be as clear as possible for everyone who is attuned. Um, you may know this already, that my primary path is a mystical path. So I've been following the mystical Christ for a long time now. And the, the goal is to attune and awaken the mystical Christ within, which is the I am. Which is the I am. So, um, indeed, in the Bible, it's often kind of God referred to as the I am, and that it is totally possible for everyone to awaken their own Christ. Many religions look at Christ as a figure outside of themselves, and my feeling is that it's available now to you. And tonight will be a very special gathering. The idea is an awakening experience where you can feel for yourself your own I am experience. So I'll give you a little bit of an introduction behind my journey. So, my name is Brian, and in 2012, my spiritual teacher, who hails from the Himalayas in India, he asked me to leave my old life behind. I was running a business at the time, and kind of renounce the world and set off on the road and share these types of gatherings with others. So ever since then, I've been wandering and traveling, and the primary purpose of these gatherings is a direct experience of spirit. And so along the way, I've really learned so many different methods of awakening that presence and making it larger in my own life, and therefore sharing it with others as well. So I wanted to speak just a little bit about what is the I am presence, and then we'll do some practices to kind of expand our consciousness into that state. Um, so, esoterically speaking, like, raise your hand if you're familiar with the chakra system, the chakras. Okay? So, okay, good. So that's a good education to have. Um, these energy centers, they represent different levels of consciousness, and the I am is the crown chakra. You know, when you see saints, or you see Christ, or you see Mother Mary, and she's got that halo around her head, that's the awakening of the crown chakra, which is what I would call the royal path. Some people look at Christ, you know how he wore like the purple robe and he wore the crown of thorns, right? That's representing his inheritance of the divine realm, which is the I am presence at the crown chakra. So therefore you see all the light coming out and that halo. So that is your I am. That's a symbolic way to look at the I am. And yes, you can awaken your own crown. Now, in order to do that, usually requires a fair amount of spiritual work, and particularly of awakening the Kundalini. So I'm going to ask another question. Who is familiar with the term Kundalini and what that means? Raise your hand. Okay, some. So the Kundalini is what you identify with. So we as humans, when we're on Earth, normally most of us are living in what I call the root chakra, or the earth realm. So we walk around feeling ourselves to be a body. And then Christ said, no, there's more than just the body. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, which is here. When your consciousness opens here, then it spreads to the heavens. So you go from being just an earthly body to a heavenly being. And you move your kundalini, which is your I sense, your sense of I, from I am a body at the very bottom of the spine. As that energy rises up through the different, he called them heavens. You know, chakras are heavens, so there are different realms of consciousness through each heaven. And as your kundalini rises up and pierces through each one of the energy centers, you feel yourself to be more and more expanded until you reach this place, in which case you feel yourself to be everywhere. And then the only statement left is I am. In other words, there's really not anything left to say. Once you're in that state of consciousness, you're beyond. So you might find yourself when you're in that state, like you have nothing to say to people. You're above and beyond. You're in the transcendent space. And so back then, during the time of Christ, there was a word that they used for the transcendent, or what you call the transpersonal state. And that was an Aramaic word that Christ himself used, which is Malkuta Dishmaya. Malkuta Dishmaya, which is, he calls it the kingdom of heaven. Anytime you hear him say the kingdom of heaven, he's talking about the transpersonal state, that which is beyond everything that a human experiences and has ever experienced in this world. It is beyond. Malkuta Dishmaya, which is the heavenly state, or the kingdom of heaven. So, one way that you could activate that state is simply by chanting the mantra, which is Malkuta Dishmaya. See, that's a key. The mantra, the sound that Christ was introducing to people, they could take that sound and say it over and over again, and bit by bit awaken the consciousness of the kingdom of heaven, which is the transpersonal. Notice transpersonal, beyond person. So, one of the practices that I've been doing for quite a while now is every day chanting. And I have my mala, I don't have it right here, but the mala is like a rosary. It has 108 beads. And so I would take the beads and I would just chant every day. Malkuta Dishmaya, Malkuta Dishmaya, Malkuta Dishmaya. You can even say it. You say it to yourself. Malkuta Dishmaya, 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 Malkuta Dishmaya. In that invocation, maybe you can sense a change in the room. Starts to kindle something, shifts your consciousness into an alternative realm. So then, an important practice for shifting your kundalini, or that sense of I, who you think you are, is breath. And you know that they have a word for breath too in the Aramaic language that Christ used, and that is Ruka Dukucha. Ruka Dukucha, which is the Holy Spirit. That is the name that they used for the Holy Spirit. That is the life force energy that you can control through your breath. Your breath represents life force. So you can breathe your kundalini, or your attention, you could call it your divine spark, up the spine from the very root or the bottom of the spine to the top of the head. Right? That's the Rukadukucha. The Holy Spirit is moving the energy up. And the great mystics, the ones who have followed Christ, have used their breath to move their consciousness up into that realm. Absolutely, you can also. I always encourage people, if they can have a daily practice, if they could include partly breath, that would help you to enhance your spiritual practice so tremendously. If you did it every day, in a year you would be a different person. You'd be walking through a different dimension in your life, just through breath, especially controlled breath. So I'll introduce to you then a specific breath that you can use. Again, you can take these or leave these depending on whether you resonate with them. Everyone has their own sort of way of approaching the spiritual path. So you imagine, let's say, the light, or Rukadukucha, the Holy Spirit, as light at the very bottom of your spine. You know, if you squeeze your anal sphincter muscle, right? Right there, that's where your root is. That's the chakra, the earth chakra, the energy center. That's where people are generally. They think about earthly things. Eating, drinking, being merry. That's pretty much the world, right? So the pleasures of life, that's the root chakra. And Christ says, no, focus on heaven. So we're going to focus on heaven now. So we're going to, and better not just to talk about it, but to experience it in real life. I always felt like if you're going to be inspired by the spiritual path, have a direct experience of spirit. Don't just talk about it. So you can take your breath, and you take a deep breath, and you imagine as you breathe through the nose that you're pulling the energy up, or you're pulling the light up from the root. Imagine moving all the way up. So here's, the root is down here. You could probably see. It's down here at the very bottom. So you're breathing up, and then you move all the way up to the crown. So see how I'm kind of using my hand to go up? So I'm kind of like placing my attention down here at the root. And as I'm breathing deeply through the nose, moving the energy up to the top. So see how my hand is now at the top of the head, meaning my attention is now there. Each time I breathe, and see, she's yawning, right? That's a good sign. It's a good sign. Meaning you're kind of pushing heaviness out of your system. The things that block us from experiencing this state are things like heaviness, laziness, depression, boredom, worry, anxiety. Like all those things drag down the consciousness into this world. We're so worried about what's going to happen in the world. You turn on the news, you'll probably experience a lot of this sort of heavier gravity, worldly energy, So you want to reverse that by pushing the energy up all the way to the top. So you can try it with me. So take your hand and just kind of like, see how I'm pointing it towards my body? And take it and point it toward the root at the very bottom of the spine, okay? And then let's take in a deep breath through the nose, and then imagine that the light is moving all the way up to the top. By the time you reach the top with your breath, then the light reaches it, and then you release through the nose, and then you start again, and then you pull the energy up again. So we'll try it. So breathing in, exhale through the nose. So the attention is still here. Okay, now we'll breathe in again, breathing the light up all the way to the top of the head. Breathe out. Point the hand at the bottom of the spine again. Breathe the energy up. Release through the nose. Again, point the hand toward the root chakra and breathe the light up. Exhale through the nose. We'll keep doing this, breathing the light up. Breathing out. Again, deep breath, breathing the light up to the top of the head. Release. Again, breathe the light up. Release. Try it again. Deep breath, breathing the light up. Release. Try it again, breathing the light up. Deep breath. Release. Try it again, breathing the energy up to the top of the head. Release. Let's try 3 more deep breaths. Imagine breathing the light up to the top of the head. And then just relax. And we set our intention to tune in to the presence at the top of the head, the crown. You could imagine a halo on top of your head. Visualize that. Beautiful halo made of white light. And then letting go of the vision. Now we set our intention or our prayer. I want to feel the energy of the crown chakra, the energy center there, as clearly as possible. Just making that intention in your mind or stating it aloud begins a very profound and mystical process, an awakening. and kind of coming back to the sense of your body in the room. And now, just to get a sense, if you don't mind, raise your hand if you felt the energy of that meditation, just so I can get a sense of who was able to tune into that. Okay. Some did. Okay, good. I would like to emphasize something. Your breath has extraordinary power. It can take your spiritual experience to another level. Very important to understand. People underestimate, we'll call it Rukudakucha, the Holy Spirit, that they actually have power to activate it in themselves. Why I speak this way? Back in 2007, I attended a spiritual retreat, funny enough, in Austin, Texas. It was a 3-day, maybe 4-day, it was probably a 4-day spiritual retreat. And we did a breath practice that was about, I'd say, about an hour long. Very serious. Could you imagine? Imagine doing that for like quite a long time. And the entire breath practice was like an hour. I mean, most people probably would go into hyperventilation. But I mean, it was really serious. And about 45 minutes into that breath practice, the fire awakened within me. An experience of blissful meditation arose, and I was never the same after that. Right? This is a testimony of an awakening through breath. When I got off, I was lying on the floor, and I stood up after the breath practice, and we went to eat. I was kind of looking at, we went to like some cafeteria, and I was looking at my food. I said, "This is the most beautiful food I've ever seen. The colors are so vibrant." And I was kind of laughing like this, kind of drunk. When you're drunk and you didn't take any weed, I mean, that's, that was astonishing. And that was the first time I had that experience before, and it never turned off. My mind has been meditating ever since, naturally. I don't have to try to do some technique or some breath or some elaborate spiritual ceremony or something. It's just been meditating my being. And so it's kind of like walking through life like this, just so relaxed. I've been living here in Lancaster, which is the desert. I mean, hot. Although it may not be Dallas right now. I don't know. I don't know what Dallas's temperature is. I call the desert right across here is the mighty desert. The land of 100,000 cockroaches. My best friends are the ones that come in through the door. They're these little cockroaches, and I pray for them. So, in any case, so that the power of that breath was so extraordinary that it has stuck with me since. That is Rukudakucha. That is the Holy Spirit. That's when you're taken over by the Holy Spirit and it runs you. So it'll run your actions, it'll run your words, it'll run your thoughts. You'll think differently. You'll treat people differently. Things won't. So what I was saying is, I would drive out here to the little side street, and people drive so fast here that I'd be just sort of relaxed driving into the street. Suddenly someone was right behind me and just honking and honking, and I'd be just, oh, That's honking. And I'd be just so happy. I don't know why. And then, I'd be making a turn and they'd be honking and like, going like this towards me. And I, maybe just waving or something. But I mean, just so relaxed. But before, I just got so upset by that if someone was angry at me. So the point being is when that energy is, that Holy Spirit is kind of running through you, things like that just don't bother you. So the worries of the world don't strike your heart. I'm not saying I'm unaffected, because that's, if someone is really yelling at me, I can be affected. But the point is that my anxiety and stress level has decreased so dramatically, and meditation has just expanded and kind of made my life joyful and a sort of natural fun, a natural joy. And so because of that experience, I say, why not share that with people? And why not give the tools instead of just speaking about the philosophy of Christ? Share with people something that they can use at home, a tool that can send them to the heights of consciousness and change their life forever. I being a sort of living example of that. So the question, whether people take up my offer or not, that's okay. I don't mind. But my job at least is to share. So let's try a meditation to activate the living presence. And this actually is going to come from the heart. And here's the reason why I'm focusing on the heart. This meditation on the heart, there is a small space in the very core of the heart. It's funny because as I'm leaning in, I'm thinking I'm like getting closer to you. So, because this is important to understand. When you meditate on the heart, there's a small space in the very center of the heart where if you can touch into that space, you merge into infinity. That is the soul. Your soul, the window into your soul is located into the heart. So ultimately, your Kundalini awakens you to the I Am. And then ultimately, the final place that it resides or that it enters is back down into the heart. As it enters as this holy energy, if you want to call it that, this I sense, this divine spark, as it enters into your heart, what does it do? Burns away all of your karmas, all of your old samskaras, all of your negativity. Everything gets burned in the heart. And then, this is the final resting place. Kundalini enters into that, we'll call it holy temple, if you want to call it that, where your soul is. And then when you enter into there, you disappear. You are gone. And you are merged with divinity. And then you can say, I and my Father are one. That's when you can truly say that. Until then, you're seeking for the Father. But when you become a living expression of the Father, in other words, the Father is guiding every single step of the human being, that is when you can say, I and my Father are one. That is soul consciousness. And anyone can activate that. Anyone can find that. And there's just one thing that you need, and that is a longing to come back to the Father. This is it. If you have that longing, nothing will stop you. Every single day you wake up thinking, where is my Father? I must find my Father. That kind of intensity. So, to kind of try to draw your energy into the core of the heart, into that holy space, we'll do a visualization, very, very simple visualization. And I would call it the lotus flower meditation. The lotus flower represents the heart. In this case, I'll call it a pink lotus flower. So let's try it this way. First, try to imagine a flowing stream through your heart. And it's crystal clear. Try to visualize that and feel the flow. And then floating on that water is a pink lotus flower at the center of your heart. And in the distance, you see a forest. Beautiful, lush forest. And just over the tops of the trees, the first light of dawn is flowing over and striking that pink lotus flower at the center of your heart. As more and more sunlight enters into that flower, it blooms to receive the light. More and more light flows into that pink lotus flower at the center of your heart. And the flower becomes radiant. And the radiance of that flower spreads through your chest. And then up into your shoulders, through your throat, into your head, filling your head. And then the light spreads all the way down your torso. into your pelvis. All the way down your legs. To your feet. And the whole body is filled with the light. And it fills your aura. And then letting go of the vision. Just let your consciousness merge with the energy. Dive into the meditation. Letting go of the whole world. Going deeper and deeper into your inner sanctum. That silent space. And then very gently coming back to the feeling of your seat and the room. You could call that place the inner sanctum, where we're exploring. It's important to understand the difference. The physical body is a shell. when we focus so much on physical pleasures and needs and physical identification, our consciousness goes into the shell of the body. So you experience yourself as the body. That's a painful state to be in. Most people suffer tremendously in that state. When you draw your consciousness out of the body and into the inner sanctum, you find your infinity. You find your I am. That will give you eternal happiness. You'll never have a problem again. Ever. No matter how hard life treats the body and you, so to speak, you're above and beyond. Notice how one could say that it's not so easy to get into the inner sanctum, right? Why? Because the mind is a little slippery fish. And it doesn't want to die. You've heard that phrase, to be born again, to be born of spirit, born of water, that's what Christ said, being born of water and born of spirit. That's when he was talking to Nicodemus. It's a good teaching. Ultimately, you have to die as identification with the entity so that you can merge with infinite spirit, which is beyond the entity. This may sound deep, and not many people think about this, but I think about this all the time. How can we enter into the holiest of holies, the stillness of our own being? The mind wants to think and think and think. It does not want to die. Or say, let's call it a different way. It doesn't want to be crucified. It's too much pain. So then, the question is then how do we do it if the mind has that kind of grip and is drawing us back to earth consciousness so easily? And I always go back to this. If you have a strong desire to enter into your inner sanctum, nothing will stop you. No circumstance will stop you. Whatever life you've led. So-called, people say, oh, I've sinned too much, or I've committed too many sins. If you make a commitment right now, I'm never going to do that again, and I'm going to be good from now on, or so to speak, then that's the old you. That person doesn't even exist anymore. You're new from now on. You're no longer going to do that. So it's kind of how I've led my path. Let me give you an example. I used to be very, very competitive, a very serious runner. I had to win. If I came in second, I'd be miserable. When I was young, my parents would come to congratulate me because I placed second in a race. I looked at them and gestured them away. I said, I don't even want to talk to you. I placed second. I'd walk away moping. I mean, that's serious, right? That's a serious competitor. When I was probably around 30 years old, I realized that was a block, like competition. It's too much. It was blocking me from going from within. So one day I said, I'm not going to run anymore. I stopped running, which is unimaginable because I've been running since I was 6, long distance. But I said, if I'm going to walk this path seriously, I have to work on my deepest issues. Why do I need to compete anymore? So literally, I stopped. I run now, but I now run just to keep the body in shape, not to win or beat other people. So I could think that I was the best. There was one spiritual retreat that I went to where we were doing a breath session too. And when you do a breath session, deep breathing, that brings up all your issues to the surface. It just does, because it starts to push things to the surface. Suddenly in the middle of the breath session, I stood up and I said something like, I'm number one. And I start shouting this, and there was all these other people, right, in the room, and I'm just shouting, I'm number one. And it was like I was getting it out of my system, right? Because that was such a deep-rooted thing. And when you do the deep breathing, it just brings out that stuff that the ego is made of, the root of what the ego is made of. You want to see what you're made of in terms of your ego? You try deep breathing and it will bring it out. And it was a purging of my system, the deepest stuff. But this wasn't an easy breath session, right? Like I was bent upon going into my most profound patternings that make up this Brian. What are those? I don't even know what they are. And suddenly it's coming out because I have an intention. Oh Lord, or oh God, or whatever it is that you use. Please help me to see what is blocking me from going into the holiest of holies. What's blocking the gate from me diving into that beautiful place that is beyond time, beyond space, beyond this world, beyond the highest heavens? What's blocking me? What's locking the door? Why can't I enter? Why does my mind keep gravitating back to earth? So that has been a process of what I call purification, self-reflection. Where am I deviating from here? Where am I turning away from the divine? Be real about it. Be real. I recently had an experience where I realized that in every house that I've stayed in, because I'm a wandering monk and I go from home to home to home, people support me out of the generosity of their own heart because they really believe in the cause that I'm representing, to bring this energy to others, to create the space. And most homes that I would stay in, inevitably, there would be sometimes I would feel like I was walking on eggshells. Like I didn't want to get the person upset by doing something wrong in the household to get them mad, whatever. Everyone has their rules in their house according to how they want their household run. I didn't want to get person upset. I wanted them to like me. So it caused me to so-called walk on eggshells. I said, where is this coming from? And as I went into this particular healing process, there was a realization, wait a minute. It was an experience that I had long ago with my mother, because my mother had particular rules around the household, and I felt afraid of accidentally doing something that she didn't like. So I started walking on eggshells around my mother. And ever since then, I carried it on and on and on. And you know what I did? This happened about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I called my mother. I called her. That's brave for me because I don't want to create any waves. Especially with your own mother. And I said, this is how I felt when I was young. I felt there was a lot of pressure to be a good boy. Maybe she didn't realize, that I felt that enormous amount of pressure, that I felt like I was walking on eggshells, and that I was carrying it from household to household to household. And she was open to listening to me. I mean, it was such a beautiful experience, and she was glad that I was being so open. And it just me expressing to her already began a huge healing process for me, where now I don't have so much worry about walking on eggshells, and I could actually speak to people about issues, whatever. If there's a problem in the household, I can just address it. But I'm not creeping around the house like this, trying to make sure that I don't bother the person. That's how I've worked out my karma. Uncomfortable. hard. Who wants to do that? But that is the path of purification. Now I have even a better, closer relationship with my mother than I did before. So that's just kind of like a personal example of what we can do, because oftentimes it begins with parents. We all kind of know this, interactions with parents, and then we bring the same kind of attitude into all relationships, end up attracting the same kind of mates into our lives, and so on and so forth, because we're comfortable with that. So this process of purification gives space for your I sense, your sense of me, your sense of identification to rise up the spine. It just gives space. There's more room for that to move up and up and up. And each time you clear something more, there's more space. And it keeps rising and rising. And what happens? You feel more and more expansive until finally you reach the I am. This is the spiritual path. Everyone will have to walk this path at some point, at least if you want to evolve in consciousness, which is the point of being a human in the first place. How do I evolve? How do I reach my highest potential, which means supreme happiness? When you're floating in heaven in this state of consciousness, there's not a single thing in the world that could bother you. No one, no matter what they said to you, no situation. You could be starving and still blissful out of your mind. Some people even question whether Christ felt the pain of being whipped and on the cross. Some people even question because his state was cosmic. Right? It's a good question. If you're beyond the body, you don't have to feel the pain of the body. A being that had gone beyond. What a beautiful state to be in. Okay, so I wanted to just introduce to you one mantra that you can chant to invoke, I'll say this, the state beyond comprehension. Back during the time of Christ, one of the words for God in Aramaic was Allah. Have you heard the word before? Allah. Yeah, they use that word. You can use that as a mantra for yourself to awaken the divine state, the God within you, simply chanting Allah. It's very simple. This is also another practice I've been doing very seriously over the past, it's been about a month and a half or so, of just chanting this mantra. So, I have my harmonium. You guys have seen this one? Or everyone has seen this? You can see I'll play it a little bit, see? Hopefully you can hear it with the microphone. I wear this microphone just so you could tune into the sound also. This harmonium is blessed, so it also has a kind of transmission about it. And so what you do, if you want to really feel the presence and energy and power of a mantra or a holy word, the name of God, then simply set your intention to feel it, to open to it, to sense it. Intention is the same thing as prayer. I pray to God, please help me to feel the energy, the healing power of this mantra as deeply as possible. So I'll bring it back here so you can see. So that's the idea. You come in with that intention. Your intention makes all the difference. So you can sing with me. Don't worry, I can't hear your voice. Because in this case, when the microphone's plugged in, it's only one way, at least for now. So you can sing it however you like, but this is the mantra. Allah, 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 and then slowly coming back into the feeling of your seat in the room. And if you would like, we can open it up to any comments or questions. If you experienced anything you wanted to share, or you had any questions about my path or what I've shared with you, or maybe even what you liked the best, where you felt maybe the energy the most, what was the easiest for you to tune in. And that can also be sometimes like helpful feedback. So I'm going to unplug my microphone so I could actually also hear you. I don't know if your microphone is on, but I should be able to hear you. I can, yes. So your voice is a little bit quiet, I think, because you're so far away from the microphone. So maybe if Reverend James, either you walk up to the microphone or Reverend James will repeat it.
Is this better?
That's so much better.
Okay. Would you mind to spell the mantra that you began with, the I am mantra at the
Yes.
beginning?
Malkoota. Malkuta. That's Malkoota. Malkuta. And then Dishamaya, which is like kind of lowercase d, and then apostrophe, and then capital Shmeya. Malkuta Dishmaya, which means kingdom of heaven or the transpersonal state. Why I mention Aramaic mantras, because they have an energy about them. And this is a lost science in our society. We're so caught in Latin and English, or Latin languages, which is a very logical language. And so we're a very cerebral society where we have to figure out everything. We're always asking why. Sometimes I say, like, why do we always have to ask why? Right? It's kind of ironic that I ask it like that. Why do we always have to ask why? So in this case, it's like, experience spiritual truth for yourself instead of trying to figure it out. There's plenty of people who talk about truth and preach about it, but how many people actually go into the transcendental state beyond the mind? That's much, much more rare. So that mantra can help to bring you there.
So Brian, this is Ann, and I'm filling in for James. He had to leave.
Okay, good.
Sent me a text, and so we want to know if anybody else has questions or comments, and then I can either repeat or you can come right here.
Yeah, thank you, Ann.
Yes, ma'am. You asked if you would ever create a CD. All right. She would like to know if you have, or if you would create a CD that we can use at home.
2 of them I have. One of them is a meditation CD. Do you remember the lotus flower meditation with the pink lotus flower? That one meditation is on there along with a few others. Each one is probably between 6 and 10 minutes long. So they're not long meditations, but it's a CD that is about an hour long. And the reason why I make short meditations is because I know people have short attention spans. And so when I'm sitting together with a group, I can tell people are fidgeting. And so I need to kind of create like little bite-sized meditations because people can't handle being in long silence, right? So that's why I made that CD. So that's one CD. And then the other one is a CD of mantras, 11 different mantras. And actually, they're all Sanskrit mantras, and each one has a specific purpose. I won't go into all the details, but mantras have an energetic transmission. So when you listen to the CD, you've got the harmonium music in the background, and you've got the particular mantra. And that's a way that you can learn how to speak Sanskrit mantras, and also you can tune into the energy transmission on the CD itself. Reverend James does not have that CD with him. Although what I may do is I may send him something and he can make like copies of it, and then he can just sell it for a donation of $20 for a CD. That's usually what I do. And that also supports me in making it possible for me even to get to Dallas, because my intention is to go to Dallas sometime in November around Thanksgiving. And my hope is to do a series of Christmas gatherings, like since it's the time of Christ, to do Christ meditations while I'm there, and then maybe leave sometime like in January. That's my hope, because every time I've gone to Dallas, I've had such a warm welcome, especially from Reverend James, because he really believes in what I'm doing. And so I might as well just send him some copies, and he can keep it in your library or whatever, and you can buy those from like that.
So you will coordinate that with James and get it to us?
I will. And actually, one more thing I want to add to that. If anyone wants to stay in contact with me, or if they want a CD, maybe, Anne, if you can create like a little list where people can put their name and email, and then just write next to it like CD or something like that, and then what kind you're looking for, and then I can get in touch with you by email as well. And then also, I have a monthly newsletter. I don't send out much, and the newsletter is very short, but it just gives you kind of snippets of spiritual concepts and mantras and things like that, so people can stay attuned and connected with me. And one more thing is, anytime you're supporting a wandering monk, let's say a person who is spreading true spiritual energy, anytime you support them, either monetarily or even house them or somehow support them in whatever way, you're connecting yourself to that being's energy. So in a way, it's a service to make it possible for me to spread the energy to others and for your own spiritual development as well. So anyway, that's an added thing.
So I have a suggestion, and that is, if you don't do it tonight, you can put on the next desk, I'll have it on Sunday, you can come by and give your opinion on this, and we'll make sure to get it to Brian. Is that okay, Brian?
I didn't hear exactly what you said.
I said we can do a sign-up sheet on Sunday.
Totally fine.
And then we can send you everyone's name and email address.
Totally fine. Totally fine. As I said, my hope is to stay in Dallas for 2 months during the time. It depends on whether I'll find a home to stay at. But because I usually stay as long as people like me to stay there, when they're, I just want to kind of say this, which is, I really do appreciate the congregation at the Unity of Dallas. When I went up there, when I did the talk on that one Sunday, did anyone watch that?
Yeah.
Okay, some of you did. It was so sweet because everyone was sort of like giving me a blessing and clapping for me, and it was just so supportive. And I just wanted to mention that I really appreciate it because it really makes a difference for me. It's encouraging because it's not an easy life to be a wandering monk where you don't have a home and you're just going from place to place because, and most people have that home where they can kind of go back to. So to go to a place like Unity and really feel at home really puts me at ease and allows me to just kind of really enjoy myself while I'm there. So I just want to mention it to all of you that your warm welcome has really made a difference.
Good. That's great. So does anybody else have a question? We'll sign off. All right. Come back to reading. Okay. She asked if you can elaborate on the 1 hour breathing meditation that you did.
The 1 hour, you mean on the CD?
The quick breathing one.
Oh, that one where I had the breakthrough. Right. So I might do this with you when I'm with you in person. Rather than online, because it's really hard, because I rather would keep track of you like I'm really interacting with you in person, because the in-person breath session and the gatherings are really powerful for me personally, and I've noticed other people too. I mean, this kind of interaction that we're having, the energy is definitely there, but in person somehow the presence comes even more alive. So when I did that breath practice, there was one guy who was leading it. He was a spiritual teacher who was also very connected to presence, very connected to the energy. So he really created a powerful space for transformation. By the way, that's a key thing. You could have a normal person leading a breath session, but if the presence and energy is not in the space, then you're probably not going to have such a strong breakthrough. But if the energy is alive there, because the person who's facilitating is also in a spiritual state, it's like creating a different world, is what I'm saying. So the guy who was leading that, he was in a different world. So that made a difference. And then he was kind of guiding it, where he would say, okay, now it's time do deep breathing, breathing in and out through the nose or mouth, either one. And then we'll do this for 10 minutes straight, just deep breathing, right? Don't stop, just keep going. And then they would have music, right? So we would follow. The music was kind of an added inspiration, spiritual music to kind of keep the rhythm going, so you wouldn't stop. Because the key is not to stop. Even though your mind wants to stop, you don't stop. After the 10 minutes, we would relax and just rest and just kind of feel the flow of the prana, of the energy of the life force running through. And that might be a 5-minute break. And then we would do another 10-minute deep breathing session, right? And breathe the energy through us. And the deep breathing, see, the reason why a facilitator is so important is because they're like a coach. They're a coach that keeps you going. You can do it. Keep going. And then with the music along with it, I mean, it's just, because otherwise if the person's trying to do it by themselves, it's just hard to keep that up for an hour, right? Not many people could do it. So off and on, so 10 minutes deep breathing, 5 minutes relaxation, 10 minutes deep breathing, and so you switch, and you switch. It's like doing intervals. And then after doing an hour, and like I said, after the 45 minutes of doing that, it was such a tremendous breakthrough. I mean, I had tears in my eyes. I was astonished at what had happened. And at that moment, I realized breath can be the key for so many people to have spiritual breakthroughs on their path. Why not do it? I mean, you have to be kind of hardy. You have to be kind of tough and say, okay, I'm going to do this no matter what. But if you make that commitment to do the whole breath session, you're much more likely to have a breakthrough than if you just do a little bit of breathing here and you're kind of weak. Most people have such weak breathing. It's kind of sad, actually. You know, we lose, because we're so anxious, we lose the sense of our breath. So the deep breathing really caused me for the energy to flow through my system more and cut through the heaviness, the laziness, the boredom, the depression. And once those energy channels start to get cleared, it is astonishing. So hopefully that answers your question.
All right, anybody else be ready to sign off? Brian, we want to say thank you and we love you.
Love you. So much love. Thank you all for
Thank you for being here.
Okay. Namaste.
Namaste. I'm sending you blessings.
Thank you. Bye.